next movie I want to look at is the Last Voyage of the Demeter,
Yes.
and this movie caught me by surprise. And I was, when I initially saw the trailer, I was like, what exactly can they do with this one segment from the novel and turn that into a movie? But the way they executed it, I thought I genuinely enjoyed it, and I was genuinely, there were moments where I just kind of gripped my armchair because I'm like, man, like, don't go in that hole, man, don't go in that hole.
No, God, no.
It's survival horror at its best because you're out at sea, you don't know what you're doing, and what I really find interesting is at the very beginning is when they're moving all the stuff into the hole. All the sailors who were recently recruited are like, no, they see the seal and they're like, no, fuck this, I'm out of here. Keep your money. I'm good, bro. Like, you do you. I'm just gonna go back and like gamble away. Like,
the rare smart character in a horror movie.
Yeah. But so what were your thoughts on this one? Because out of all the Dracula movies here, this is one where we seldom see the character.
Yeah.
It's more of building up the atmosphere, and then when he strikes, it's almost one of those things where you kind of have to freeze frame just to see it.
Yeah.
We're mostly seeing the aftermath of what he does, but the level of dread and terror that you get, it's like it starts to sink in after a while when they're like, yeah, there really is something going on here, and there is no way for us to get off the ship. Like,
yeah, this movie, first off, is a remarkably well-made movie.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been so, because when I went into this, I'm going to be real honest, I went into this for for two very specific actors, because I love Corey Hawkins and I love Liam Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
I love those two people. Heard they were in this, sold. But when I remember especially seeing the trailer, I was a little nervous. I was like, is this movie just going to be like dark the whole time? Because that is a very common thing in particularly horror movies, where you've got something that is unique looking, or a monster you want to kind of hide the bits of. You just make it really dark, and you're like, yeah, you can kind of see it. So I was. It
becomes a cliche almost.
Yeah, I was really nervous. I was like, God, are they just going to make this so dark that you can't see anything? No, they don't do that. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a very good showing of. Yeah, have you ever heard the story about Jaws and how they were going to have the shark in it much more often, but the animatronic kept messing up?
I heard about that. Yeah.
So then it became this thing where you had the presence of the creature without necessarily seeing the creature. This movie is, I think it's probably the most well done I've seen that since Jaws. He is such a constant presence. You do see him, but it's not, you don't see him so much that you lose the effect of how terrifying he is or how horrific he looks, because this is the most animalistic that we've seen. I think this is the most animalistic I've ever seen.
Right. And he only speaks once in the movie too. That's what I think is so remarkable. And to your point, because the thing is that when we think of Dracula, we think of him as this urbane, aristocratic character who can go into high society in London and have a conversation, talk about, oh, I see you purchased Carfax Abbey, what brings you to England, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you would be none the wiser, because, if you saw Gary Oldman, like, hanging out, like, in the ballroom, like, you wouldn't be afraid to approach him. Even the Dracula Van Helsing is, still familiar, right? Yeah. But here, this is a completely foreign character. Like, in terms of foreign, I mean non-human. He doesn't. It doesn't meet our expectations of who we expect Dracula to be, and I think that's what makes this portrayal all the more better, because we get to see a different side of him.
Yeah, and this one, there's some knockout acting in this, because it is automatically scarier because they can't leave. They're on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The daytime versus nighttime transitions, I think, are great. You really get to see these characters just like become more and more terrified as they go on, because they start to realize, like, I don't know if we can stop this. This is just such a powerful source of evil on this ship, and we're just people. There's a lot of great acting where they think they've got a plan, they think it's going to work, and then it doesn't, and then okay, we've got to pivot from that. There are some great special effects. The fire scene in this, oh my, I will say that took me by surprise. That was,
chef's kiss, like,
yeah,
like that,
oh my God, that was good. And then the I think like the big reveal where it's him on the ship at night and the wings open up and it, oh my God, such a good shot. But yeah, this movie, of the other up to this point, this is easily the most definitive horror movie that we've talked about. And yeah, the most animalistic version only speaks one line, and just you get the sense of dread. And this one, I think, really you get to focus on the people around Dracula and what they go through, as opposed to a big focus on Dracula as a character. In this, he's not necessarily the focus of the story. He's just he's the antagonist of the story, and we get to spend time with the human side, really trying to figure out how they're gonna, if not beat him, at the very least survive him.
I mean, but that's the thing, because we know how the story is going to end anyway.
Yeah.
But another thing too, is the fact that is the fact that I think they did a pretty good job in kind of showing him sparingly too, because because it's not so much about the character as it is about the aura of the character, right? It's just when they say, your reputation precedes you, I think this movie definitely highlights that. And especially when you have that girl who's talking about, I'm basically like, a human larder for this guy. Like, he just feeds on me, and my village sacrificed me so they, so he won't bother them. You kind of get hints that he is an intelligent character, like someone that you could bargain with, but when you actually see him, you're like, I don't know how you can reason with this thing.
Right, dude. Like, it is crazy that every time I think of Dracula, I do think of a person, like a person shaped thing. And
someone's capable of speech also.
Yeah. I seriously, I imagine a person with sharp teeth. I do not imagine what he is in this. This is not the version of Dracula that I think of. I will say I was a little surprised at how many people saw this movie and did not know this was part of the Dracula story.
Yeah, like that's what struck me too. I'm like,
they had no idea what this was.
Yeah, exactly. Well, to be here, because we have seen shots of the ship transporting Dracula, but people have never really put the two together. That's so. I guess I could sort of understand where they're coming from, but I think to take that one. Because just like with Van Helsing, where they took like a single character from the novel and kind of expanded on the story, I think what they did here was brilliant. And I think, and to your point, I think out of all of the movies, this is like a genuinely good horror movie. Like, I was also concerned that either the movie was going to be too short because it just wasn't an idea they were going to be able to make a truly full-length movie out of, or they were going to try too hard, go on the opposite end, and it was going to be too long and really boring. And I think this one hit the sweet spot. I kind of wish people regarded this movie a bit better. It feels like this one sort of came and went, and a few people liked it, but I don't really hear a lot of people talk about it. I thought it was great. I will say also, this was a movie that, because I've seen it in theaters and I've seen it just here in my living room, seeing this in theaters was such a different experience. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Because especially when the storms are raging and you've got the thunder and lightning effects and you've got the giant boomings. Hell yeah, dude. This movie was so good to see in theaters.
Well, I was going to say too, because, because of the fact that they're on a ship, and they're experiencing all these storm swells, you kind of get the feeling that this is Dracula's environment. Like, he is in his element, because this is someone who very much, finds himself. He's basically at a buffet, basically. And
I mean, yeah, he's pretty much like, you guys literally locked all of my food in here with me. Appreciate it. Big thumbs up.
Yeah. So my big thanks is I'll eat you guys last, basically.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, the one thing that's really, really haunting is the eyes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like, and I thought out of all the portrayals of Dracula, those eyes in Demeter, oh my God, they're haunting. Like,
yeah, this movie has so many moments that just because I will say the movie we're going to talk about next has a lot of them as well, that there are just a lot of moments where there's just the imagery, them on fire, the zoom in of the eyes, him with his wings up and like this lightning flashes behind him. There are so many moments that are so freaking iconic in a movie that takes place in basically one location.
It's a
Dude,
bottle episode, basically.
Yeah, dude, that was so good. God, this was so good. Also, great creature actor Javier Botet is the one doing the Dracula-ness. I was like, man, that poor guy has gone through more prosthetic applications in his life than almost any other 10 people.
Yeah, even more than Doug Jones.
I was like, he and Doug Jones are the two that, like, God, the amount of time those guys have spent in makeup chairs.
But I mean, the payoff is so amazing. And I was going to say, at the very end, when Clemens is at the pub and we see Dracula, I'm thinking, oh, so now we get to see him in human form. No, is just a bat in a top hat and a coat.
Yep. Yeah. I will say, I was pleasantly surprised that not everyone bit the dust in this. I read Dracula many years ago, and for the most part they talk about the Demeter, and you get most of the story from the captain's journal, captain's log.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get the post-mortem for pretty much what happened. So it from him, unless he was the last survivor, you're not expecting anyone to survive. So I was very pleasantly surprised that my dude made it out of this movie, hopefully movie alive, but at the very least off the ship.
Right, but we know he's not going to be the one who ends up killing Dracula at the end. So this leads